Zainab's fist slammed against the glass, hard enough to make her knuckles scream. The rain outside lashed the floor to ceiling windows in sheets. Seoul's glittering skyline, blurring into streaks of neon 47 stories below. She hit the glass again, then again, her breath coming in ragged gasps that fogged the surface. No sound. Not even the faintest thud penetrated whatever material separated her from the world. The glass is 3 inches thick. Bulletproof. She spun so fast, her bare feet nearly slipped on the marble floor. He stood in the doorway, tall and severe, in a black suit that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. Kang Jae-min, the man from the cafe. The billionaire whose face had been plastered across every business magazine in Seoul. The man who had stolen her life. "Scream all you want, Zainab," he continued, his voice carrying that same careful control she'd heard on the phone when his men dragged her into that black sedan. "No one hears. No one comes. This penthouse is designed for absolute privacy." She felt the tears burning behind her eyes, but refused to let them fall. Not in front of him. Not when he was watching her, with those dark, exhausted eyes that seemed to catalogue every micro-expression on her face. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against her sides, feeling the silk of the slip dress he'd left for her. Not hers. Nothing here was hers, except the terror coursing through her veins. "How long?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "How long have I been here?" 3 weeks. The words hit like a physical blow. 3 weeks. She'd lost 3 weeks of her life to this madness. And the last thing she remembered was running through the rain-soaked streets near the gallery, her lungs burning as she tried to escape the men in suits, the chloroform-soaked cloth pressing against her mouth and nose, and his face, emotionless and terrible, watching her consciousness slip away. "My family," she whispered. "They'll be looking for me." "The police. Your family received a video message from you 3 days ago, explaining that you'd been selected for an exclusive residency program that requires isolation. Your mother was so proud." His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Regret. Perhaps. Or maybe just exhaustion. "The police have no missing person report. Your visa status shows you're in good standing with immigration. Your phone's location data places you at various cultural sites around Seoul, though of course you haven't actually visited any of them. You can't do this." But even as she said it, she knew he already had. Everything she thought she knew about safety, about laws, about the basic human right to freedom. He'd shattered it all, like the glass she couldn't break. He moved into the room with careful, measured steps, keeping distance between them like he was approaching a wounded animal. "There's fresh clothing in the closet. All your size. I had my assistant research your preferences. Traditional Nigerian breakfast is in the kitchen, kept warm. Jollof rice, fried plantains, akara. I hired a chef, specifically, to learn your home cuisine. I don't want your food." The words came out harsh, desperate. "I want to leave. I want my life back." For the first time, something cracked in his composure. His jaw tightened, and he ran a hand through his dark hair, messing the perfect styling. He looked, she realized with a jolt, absolutely wrecked. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His cheekbones stood out sharper than in the photos she'd seen, like he hadn't been eating properly. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its careful control, cracking around the edges. I know what I've done is unforgivable. I know I'm a monster. But I couldn't." He stopped, turning away from her. His shoulders rose and fell with a deep breath. "Let me show you something." He pulled a tablet from his jacket and set it on the glass coffee table between them, then stepped back, giving her space. Zainab approached cautiously, her eyes never leaving him. On the screen were photographs, surveillance photos, of her, dozens of them, taken over months. Her walking to the gallery, eating lunch at the small Nigerian restaurant in Itaewon, video calling her mother, leaving her apartment building at dawn. "These aren't mine," Jaemin said quietly. "I discovered them 2 months ago. Someone else was watching you. Someone dangerous." Her stomach twisted. "Who?" "The Choi family. Rivals to my corporation. To my family's position. They found out about my interest in you and decided you'd make excellent leverage." His voice had gone cold, businesslike, but his hands were clenched into fists at his sides. "They were planning to take you, use you to force concessions from me in a merger negotiation, and when they were done extracting what they wanted, they would have..." "Stop." She held up a hand, not wanting to hear the end of that sentence. Her mind was reeling. Your interest in me. We met once. For 30 seconds in a cafe. I smiled at you. That's it. That's all that happened. I know. He looked at her then. Really looked at her. And the raw vulnerability in his expression made her chest constrict. That day, 6 weeks ago, I was coming from a rooftop. I'd been standing at the edge for 20 minutes, trying to decide whether to jump. The air seemed to leave the room. Zainab found herself gripping the edge of the coffee table, her legs suddenly unsteady. My family was forcing an arranged marriage, he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. A business merger, disguised as matrimony. My father called me an asset, not a son. My brother told me to stop being selfish and do my duty. Everyone in my life sees me as a means to an end. A signature on contracts. A face for magazine covers. I couldn't remember the last time someone looked at me and saw just a person. He moved to the window, pressing one hand against the rain-streaked glass. Then you bumped into me. You helped pick up papers you had no reason to care about. And you smiled. Not because you wanted something from me. Not because you knew who I was. You smiled because you saw someone having a rough day and wanted to offer a moment of human kindness. Zainab's throat felt tight. She remembered that day. The exhausted businessman in expensive clothes, who'd looked like he was carrying the weight of the world. She'd helped him because that's what you did for people. That's what her mother had taught her. Kindness costs nothing. So you had me investigated, she said, trying to keep the tremor out of her voice. You learned everything about me. My visa status. My financial struggles. My family back in Lagos. And then when someone else started watching me, you decided the best solution was to kidnap me yourself. Yes. No justification. No excuses. Just that single word. Heavy with guilt. You're insane. I know. He turned back to face her, and the devastating honesty in his expression made something twist in her chest. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not even asking you to understand. I'm just asking you to stay alive. If I'd let the Choi family take you, you'd be dead by now. Or worse. And this is better? She gestured at the gilded cage around them, fury and fear, and something else she didn't want to name churning in her stomach. You've trapped me in a luxury prison, faked communications to my family, destroyed my ability to leave Seoul. How is this better? Because you're safe. The words came out fierce, almost angry. Because you're fed, and clothed, and alive. Because I would die before I let anyone hurt you. The intensity in his voice sent shivers down her spine. This wasn't the calculated coldness of a corporate predator. This was something raw and desperate, and utterly terrifying in its sincerity. Before she could respond, her stomach growled, betraying the hunger she'd been trying to ignore. Jaemin's expression softened slightly. Please eat. Then we can talk more. I'll stay in my office. Give you privacy. He moved toward a door on the far side of the living space, then paused. The bedroom is yours. I've been sleeping on the couch in the study. You'll find art supplies in the sunroom if you want them. Charcoals, oils, watercolors, everything you used at the gallery, and more. How do you know what I used at the gallery? I bought the gallery 3 months ago. He said it like he was confessing another crime. Extended your visa sponsorship. Gave your boss the budget to finally pay you properly. I've been trying to make your life easier. I know that doesn't excuse what I've done now, but I need you to understand I never meant to hurt you. Then, he was gone, the door closing softly behind him, leaving Zainab alone in the vast, beautiful prison he'd built for her. She stood there for a long moment, her mind spinning. Then her stomach growled again, and she found herself walking toward the kitchen on shaking legs. The smell hit her first, rich and familiar, and devastating in its accuracy. Jollof rice the way her mother made it, with the slight char on the bottom that elevated it from good to perfect. Fried plantains, golden and caramelized. Akara still warm. The bean cakes fluffy inside and crispy outside. Zainab told herself she was only eating to keep her strength up. Told herself it meant nothing that the food tasted exactly like home. Told herself the tears rolling down her cheeks as she ate were just exhaustion and stress and fear. She didn't let herself think about the level of obsessive care it must have taken to get every detail perfect. Didn't let herself wonder what kind of man would go to such lengths. Didn't let herself acknowledge the small, treacherous part of her that felt, for the first time in 6 months of struggling in Seoul, taken care of. After she ate, Zainab explored the penthouse with the systematic thoroughness of someone searching for an escape route. Every door, except the bedroom and bathroom, required biometric scanning. The windows were exactly as he'd described. 3 inches of reinforced bulletproof glass that didn't even vibrate when she hit it. No phone, no computer, no way to communicate with the outside world. But there were books, hundreds of them, in a library that took up an entire wall. Nigerian authors she loved, Korean literature in English translation, arts books and poetry and novels she'd had on her wish list, but couldn't afford. The sunroom took her breath away despite herself. North-facing light, perfect for painting. An easel set up with a blank canvas. Every art supply she could imagine organized on shelves like a high-end studio. Her fingers itched to pick up a brush, even as her mind screamed that she shouldn't. That accepting anything from him was another form of imprisonment. She found herself in front of the easel anyway, a piece of charcoal in her hand, before she'd consciously decided to pick it up. The canvas was expensive, properly primed. She touched the charcoal to its surface and started drawing without thinking. Lines and shadows taking shape. A face emerging. His face, she realized with a start. Jae-min, but not the controlled corporate mask he showed the world. This was the man she'd glimpsed in the cafe 6 weeks ago. Exhausted, haunted, barely holding himself together. It's beautiful. She spun around, the charcoal snapping in her grip. He stood in the doorway, changed into simple black pants and a white shirt, looking somehow more intimidating without the armor of his suit. I didn't hear you come in. I'm sorry. I should have knocked. He stayed in the doorway, not entering her space. I wanted to check if you needed anything. I need to leave. But the words came out without heat. She was too tired for rage right now. Too overwhelmed by everything she'd learned. Too confused by the contradiction of this man who'd kidnapped her, but filled her prison with everything she loved. Jae-min was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the portrait she'd been drawing. You see me, he said finally, his voice barely audible. Really see me. Not the CEO, not the family name, not the money. Just me. Zainab set down what remained of the charcoal and crossed her arms. Don't do that. Don't romanticize this. You kidnapped me. You've held me prisoner for 3 weeks. The fact that you're self-aware enough to feel guilty about it doesn't make it okay. I know. He leaned against the doorframe like standing. Took too much effort. Up close, he looked even worse than she'd initially thought. The shadows under his eyes were deep purple, almost bruises. His hands trembled slightly before he shoved them in his pockets. I haven't slept more than an hour at a time since I brought you here. Keep having nightmares about what would have happened if I hadn't. Keep seeing them hurting you. So you hurt me instead. Yes. He met her eyes, not flinching from the accusation. I told myself I was protecting you, that this was the only way. But the truth is, I was also protecting myself, because the thought of you going back to Lagos, of never seeing you again, of living the rest of my life, wondering what could have been if I just had the courage to approach you like a normal person, instead of a stalker, obsessive. He cut himself off, jaw clenching. I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm just being honest. Zainab felt something dangerous stirring in her chest. Sympathy, empathy, understanding emotions. She had no business feeling for her captor. She forced them down, forced her voice to stay hard. If you really care about me, you'll let me go. Right now. Undo whatever you've done to my visa. Give me back my phone. And let me walk out that door. I can't. The words came out strangled. The Choi family is still looking for you. If you surface now, they'll know I was protecting you. They'll come after you harder than before, just to prove they can. I need time to neutralize the threat, to make you untouchable in ways that don't involve keeping you locked up here. How much time? He hesitated. 2 months. Maybe 3. I'm working on acquiring enough leverage over their business operations to force a treaty. Once I have that, once I can guarantee your safety, I'll let you go. I'll restore everything, erase every trace of what I've done. And I'm just supposed to trust you, the man who drugged me and locked me in a tower? No. He pushed off the doorframe, taking a single step closer, still maintaining distance, but close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. You're supposed to survive. That's all I'm asking. Survive these next few months. Hate me if you need to. Scream at me. Throw things. I won't stop you. Just stay alive long enough for me to fix this. The raw desperation in his voice did something to her resolve. Made cracks appear in the wall of fury she'd been trying to maintain. She hated it. hated that some part of her wanted to comfort him. This man who'd stolen her freedom. "I need time alone," she said, turning back to the canvas. "Please leave." She heard him hesitate, then his footsteps retreating, the soft click of a door closing. Only then did she let herself sag against the easel, her hands shaking as she pressed them to her face. The days blurred together in a strange, surreal routine. Zainab would wake in the enormous bedroom, sunlight streaming through windows she couldn't open. She'd find breakfast waiting in the kitchen, always something different, always perfectly made. She'd eat alone. Then she'd paint, or read, or simply stare at the rain-soaked city below, feeling like a princess in a fairy tale gone horribly wrong. Jaemin kept his distance. She'd see him sometimes, working at the dining table with his laptop and phone, speaking in rapid Korean to people she couldn't see. His voice would change depending on who was on the line. Cold and commanding for business associates, carefully neutral for his family, exhausted and strained when he thought she wasn't listening. She started noticing things. The way he barely ate, picking at the elaborate meals that appeared at dinner time, the way his hands would shake when he thought no one was watching, the medication bottles in the kitchen cabinet that she glimpsed one morning, labels in Korean she couldn't quite read but recognized the format of. Antidepressants, maybe, or anti-anxiety medication. One night, 2 weeks into her captivity, she woke to raised voices. She crept to her bedroom door, cracking it open. Jaemin was on the phone in the living room, his back to her, every line of his body tense. "I don't care what father says. I'm not marrying her." His Korean was sharp, angry. The contract was already problematic. "I found a loophole, a better solution." Pause. "That's none of your concern, Hyung. Just tell father the merger will happen, but on my terms." He listened for a long moment, then his shoulders slumped. "You think I don't know that? You think I don't hate myself for every decision I've made in the last 3 months?" His voice cracked. "But I couldn't let them have her. I couldn't. She's the only good thing I've seen in years. And I know keeping her here is killing that goodness. But at least she's breathing. At least she's safe." Zainab's breath caught. She should go back to bed. Should give him privacy for this vulnerable moment. Instead, she found herself frozen, listening to a man unravel. "Tell father I'll handle it," Jaemin said finally, his voice going cold again. "The wedding contract will be honored, just not the way he expects. Now leave me alone. I have work to do." He hung up and stood there for a long moment, his head bowed. Then he pulled open a drawer in the console table and took out a bottle of whiskey, poured 3 fingers into a glass without bothering to measure, drank it in one swallow. Zainab watched him pour another glass, then made a decision that probably made her as insane as him. She opened her bedroom door fully and stepped into the living room. He spun around, startled, the whiskey glass suspended halfway to his lips. "You're awake," he said, setting down the glass like she'd caught him doing something shameful. "Did I wake you?" "I'm sorry. I'll take the call in the study." "Who is she?" The question came out before she could stop it. "The woman your father wants you to marry." Jaemin's expression shuttered. "No one important." "Liar." She moved closer, drawn by something she didn't want to examine. "You said you found a loophole. A better solution. What does that mean?" He was quiet for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he reached across the counter and picked up a leather folder she hadn't noticed before. Handed it to her, with hands that trembled slightly. "Read it." Zainab opened the folder. Inside was a contract, dense with legal language in both English and Korean. She skimmed it, her confusion growing, until certain phrases started jumping out at her. Binding matrimonial agreement. Corporate merger, through marriage alliance. Required cohabitation period of 90 days. And there, in the party identification section, 2 names. Kang Jaemin, Okoye Zainab. Liar. She moved closer, drawn by something she didn't want to examine. "You said you found a loophole. A better solution. What does that mean?" He was quiet for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he reached across the counter and picked up a leather folder she hadn't noticed before. Handed it to her, with hands that trembled slightly. "Read it." Zainab opened the folder. Inside was a contract, dense with legal language in both English and Korean. She skimmed it, her confusion growing, until certain phrases started jumping out at her. Binding matrimonial agreement. Corporate merger through marriage alliance. Required cohabitation period of 90 days. And there, in the party identification section, 2 names, Kang Jae-min, Okoye Zainab. The folder slipped from her nerveless fingers. What did you do? The marriage my father arranged was to Song Min-ji, daughter of Song Industries, Jae-min said, his voice carefully controlled. It would have merged our companies, yes, but it would have also locked me into a life of political maneuvering and business machinations with a woman who sees me as nothing but a useful connection. I would have been miserable. She would have been miserable. So I found an alternative. You changed the contract to my name. Her voice came out flat, shocked beyond emotional response. You're trying to trap me into marrying you. The contract is filed in Singapore, where corporate marriages are legally recognized after 90 days of cohabitation if both parties don't formally object. We're at day 21. You have 69 days to decide. Decide? She let out a laugh that sounded unhinged even to her own ears. You've kidnapped me. I'm your prisoner. Where exactly is the choice in this? On day 90, I'll give you a choice. He met her eyes, and the sincerity there was almost worse than if he'd been lying. If you want to leave, I'll tear up the contract. I'll restore your visa, give you enough money to go anywhere in the world, and start over. I'll make sure you never have to see me again. But if you stay, if you choose this of your own free will, then I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. You're insane. But her voice shook. This is insane. People don't do this. I know. He picked up his whiskey glass again, staring into the amber liquid. I know I'm a monster. I know I've ruined any chance of you ever seeing me as anything but your captor. But I'm also a desperate man who found one good thing in a life full of obligations and expectations and soul-crushing pressure. And I couldn't let it go. I couldn't let you go. Zainab backed away, her mind reeling. I need to think. I need to. I can't be near you right now. She fled back to the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. Then she slid down to the floor, her back against the wood, and finally let herself fall apart. The tears came in, wrenching sobs that tore from her chest. Not just fear anymore. Not just anger. Something worse. Something that felt dangerously close to understanding. Because somewhere in the last 3 weeks, she'd started to see him. Not just the crime of what he'd done, but the why behind it. The broken man who'd been standing on a rooftop, ready to end his life. The son treated as an asset by his family. The CEO crushed under expectations he never asked for. It didn't excuse anything. It didn't make this okay. But it made it complicated, in ways that terrified her. She cried herself to sleep on the floor, and when she woke hours later to morning light, she found a blanket draped over her shoulders and a note on the floor beside her. I'm sorry for everything, but I would do it again to keep you safe. Forgive me, or don't. I understand either way. The days after that were different, charged with tension and unspoken words, and a dangerous awareness that crackled between them whenever they were in the same room. Zainab found herself watching him more, noticing the way he moved, economical and precise, the way his jaw would clench when he was stressed, the way he'd pause sometimes and just look at her like he was memorizing every detail. She caught him watching her paint one afternoon, not intruding, just standing in the hallway where he thought she couldn't see, his expression soft and yearning. When she turned to confront him, he was already gone. Another night, she woke to strange sounds from the living room. She found him on the floor, breathing ragged, eyes squeezed shut, clearly in the grip of a panic attack. Without thinking, she knelt beside him. Breathe, she said, her voice gentle despite everything. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. His eyes flew open, wild and unseeing. She did the breathing pattern herself, exaggerating it until he started to mirror her. Slowly, painfully slowly, his breathing evened out. The panic receded from his eyes. Zainab. Her name came out broken. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to see me like this. What were you dreaming about? He closed his eyes again. You. Them taking you. Hurting you. I dream about it every night. Every single night, since I found those surveillance photos. Something cracked in her chest. How often do you have these attacks? More frequently recently. I stopped taking the medication. It made me too slow, too foggy. I couldn't protect you properly, if I was dulled. You're killing yourself, she whispered. For what? For me. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask you to destroy yourself trying to save me from a threat I didn't even know existed. I know. He opened his eyes, and the raw pain there made her chest ache. But I can't stop. Even if you hate me forever. Even if you leave on day 90 and I never see you again. At least you'll be alive. At least you'll have a future. That's enough. It wasn't enough. Nothing about this was enough. But Zainab found her hand moving without permission, fingers brushing the sweat-dampened hair from his forehead. He froze at the contact, eyes going wide. You're not a monster, she heard herself say. Monsters don't have panic attacks about the people they've hurt. Monsters don't hate themselves. Then what am I? Broken. The word came out sad. You're broken, and you're trying to fix yourself by fixing my life. And it doesn't work that way. I know. He caught her hand before she could pull it away, holding it gently against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat, rapid and unsteady. I know I can't fix this, can't fix us, can't make what I've done okay, but I can't regret it either, because every day you're here is another day you're safe, and that matters more to me than being a good person. The honesty of it was devastating. Zainab should pull away, should go back to her room, should maintain the walls she'd been trying to build. Instead, she found herself sitting on the floor beside him, her hands still caught in his, neither of them speaking. They stayed like that until dawn. Two broken people in a gilded cage, neither willing to name what was growing between them. The tension broke a week later. Zainab was in the kitchen making tea when Jamin came in from a call, his jaw clenched and eyes stormy. He poured himself a whiskey despite it being barely noon. Bad news? She asked, before she could stop herself. The Choi family is escalating. They've made inquiries about you to immigration services. I've managed to redirect them, but they're getting persistent. Her stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means I need to accelerate my timeline. I'm meeting with their CEO tomorrow to present a counteroffer. If it goes well, you'll be safe in 2 weeks instead of 2 months. And if it doesn't go well, his expression went dark, then I'll find another way. I always find another way. By doing what? Buying more companies? Destroying more lives? She set down her teacup with more force than necessary. You can't just manipulate the entire world to fit your agenda. Watch me. He drank the whiskey in one swallow. I will burn down every company, buy every politician, and destroy every person who threatens you. I don't care about the consequences. I don't care if it makes me a villain. You will be safe. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. He moved closer, and suddenly the kitchen felt much smaller. You want to know what I'm capable of? The gallery that employed you? I didn't just buy it. I bankrupted the previous owner because he made a comment about your appearance that I didn't like. The cafe where we met? I acquired the entire building and tripled the rent for every tenant except them. Your landlord back at your old apartment? He's being investigated for code violations that I ensured would be found. Zainab stared at him, horrified and fascinated in equal measure. You're insane. I'm obsessed. He was close enough now that she could see the gold flecks in his eyes, smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. I'm completely, irrevocably obsessed with you, and I've stopped pretending otherwise. So yes, I'll burn the world down if it keeps you safe. And I won't apologize for it. She should be terrified, should push him away, should remind him that obsession isn't love. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "Why did you stop?" Stop what? That night, 3 days ago, we were talking, and you moved closer, and I thought you were going to kiss me, but you stopped. Why? His jaw clenched. Because if I kissed you, you'd think everything I've done was just to get to that moment. You'd think I orchestrated all of this, just for physical gratification. And I need you to know, I need you to understand, that what I feel for you is so far beyond wanting your body that it terrifies me. Then what do you want? Everything. The word came out raw. Your thoughts, your smiles, your anger, your art, the way you tilt your head when you're thinking, the way you bite your lip when you're trying not to cry. I want your nightmares and your dreams. I want to know every scar and every joy. I want to be the person you turn to when the world is cruel, and the person you celebrate with when it's beautiful. I want to earn the right to stand beside you, and I know I've destroyed any chance of that, but I can't stop wanting it anyway. Zainab's breath caught. The space between them felt electrified, dangerous. She should step back, should maintain distance, should remember that he's her captor, that this is Stockholm Syndrome, that nothing he's saying makes the kidnapping okay. But she'd been noticing things. The way he never invaded her space without permission. The way he'd given her the master bedroom while he slept on a couch. The way he looked at her, like she was something precious, unbreakable. The way he hated himself for what he'd done, but would do it again to keep her safe. And she'd been noticing herself too. The way her heart rate picked up when he entered a room. The way she'd started listening for his footsteps. The way she'd dreamed about him 3 nights running. Dreams that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with heat and want and the imagined feeling of his hands on her skin. "Ask me," she whispered. "Ask you what?" "Ask me if I want you to kiss me." His eyes went wide, shocked. "Zainab, you don't know what you're saying. This situation, the pressure, the isolation, it's making you feel things that aren't real. Don't." She stepped closer, eliminating the last of the space between them. "Don't tell me what I feel. Don't use psychology to dismiss this. I know I shouldn't want this. I know it's probably some trauma response. I know that in 60 days, when you give me that choice, I should run as far away from you as possible and never look back. Then why aren't you?" His hands came up, hovering near her waist but not touching. "Why aren't you running now?" "Because I'm trying to figure out if you're a monster or a man." She could feel his heartbeat through his shirt, rapid and unsteady. "And I think the answer terrifies me more than either option alone. Because you're both. You're a monster who did something unforgivable. And you're a man so broken he doesn't know how to reach for good things without destroying them." "I don't want to destroy you." His voice was barely a whisper. "You're the only beautiful thing in my life. The only pure thing. If I touch you now, I'll ruin that. Maybe I want to be ruined." The words surprised her as much as him. But they were true. Some reckless part of her, the part that had always coloured outside the lines and taken risks her mother warned against, wanted to see what would happen if she gave in to this attraction. Wanted to know what it felt like to be wanted with this intensity. Wanted to stop thinking and just feel. Zainab. Her name was a warning and a prayer. "If I kiss you, I won't be able to stop at just one. If I touch you, I'll want to touch you everywhere. If I start, I won't have the strength to hold back." "Good." She lifted her hand and placed it on his chest, felt him shudder under her palm. "I don't want you to hold back. I want to see who you are when you're not trying to be controlled and careful and keeping yourself at a distance. I want to see the man who stood on that rooftop and decided to live. Show me, Jaemin. Show me who you really are." The last thread of his control snapped. She saw it happen, saw the careful mask crumble, saw the raw need and desperate want flood his expression. Then his hands were on her waist, pulling her against him, and his mouth crashed down on hers. It wasn't gentle, wasn't sweet. It was fierce and demanding, and tasted like whiskey and desperation. His hands moved up her back, fisting in her hair, angling her head to deepen the kiss. She opened for him, let him in, met his intensity with her own. Her fingers dug into his shoulders, feeling the hard muscle beneath expensive fabric. He walked her backward until her back hit the counter, then lifted her onto it effortlessly, stepped between her thighs, pressing close enough that she could feel every inch of him. He broke the kiss, to trail his mouth down her neck, teeth grazing her pulse point, making her gasp. "Tell me to stop," he breathed against her skin. "Tell me this is a mistake. Tell me you hate me." "I do hate you." Her hands were in his hair, holding him close rather than pushing away. "I hate that you did this. Hate that I want you anyway. Hate that I understand why. Hate that I am not sorry this is happening." He groaned, the sound vibrating through both of them. His hands found the hem of the silk slip she wore, fingers burning against the bare skin of her thighs. "You're driving me insane. Every day, watching you paint, watching you smile at a book, watching you exist in my space and knowing I can't touch you, can't have you, can't." She pulled his mouth back to hers, swallowing the words. They kissed like they were starving, like this was the last moment they'd ever have. Tongues tangling, and hands exploring, and breath coming in ragged gasps. He palmed her breast through the thin fabric, thumb finding her nipple, and circling until she arched into his touch, desperate for more contact. He pulled back just enough to look at her, his eyes dark and wild. "We should stop. You'll regret this tomorrow. Stop telling me what I'll feel." She hooked her legs around his waist, pulling him impossibly closer. "I'm a grown woman making a choice. A terrible, reckless, probably self-destructive choice. But mine. Unless you don't want this." His laugh was harsh and disbelieving. "Don't want this? I've imagined having you like this 1,000 times. In every room of this penthouse. Against every surface. I've dreamed about the sounds you'd make. The way you'd taste. The feeling of being inside you. Not wanting you has never been the problem. The raw confession sent heat flooding through her. She reached for the buttons of his shirt, fumbling with them until he pushed her hands away gently and did it himself, shrugging out of the expensive fabric. Her breath caught at the sight of him. Lean muscle and smooth skin. A body maintained, not for vanity, but as another form of control over a life that felt chaotic. She traced her fingers over his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath her palm. He was trembling, she realized. This man who commanded boardrooms and bent corporations to his will was shaking under her touch. "You're beautiful," she whispered, then caught herself. "I shouldn't tell you that. Shouldn't give you more ammunition to use against me. I would never weaponize your words." He caught her hand and brought it to his lips, kissing her palm with devastating tenderness. "Everything you give me is sacred. Every touch, every word, every moment. I may be a monster, but even monsters can worship." Then his mouth was on hers again. Slower this time, but no less intense. He kissed her, like he was memorizing her. Like this might be the only time he'd ever get to do this, and he needed to make it last. His hands slid under the silk slip, fingers tracing the curves of her body with reverent attention. When he cupped her breast directly, skin against skin, she moaned into his mouth. He broke away from her lips to kiss down her throat, her collarbone, the swell of her breast. His hands bunched the silk upward, and she lifted her arms, letting him pull it over her head. The cool air hit her heated skin, making her nipples tighten further. Jaemin made a sound low in his throat, something between a groan and a prayer. "Perfect," he breathed, his hands shaping her waist, her hips, her thighs. "You're perfect." She should protest the objectification, should remind him that she was a person, not a possession. But then his mouth closed over her nipple, and thought became impossible. He sucked and licked and used his teeth just enough to make her cry out, one hand kneading her other breast, while his free hand gripped her hip hard enough to bruise. She was drowning in sensation, in the feeling of being wanted this, desperately. His mouth moved to her other breast, while his hand slid lower, fingers teasing along the edge of her underwear. She lifted her hips in invitation, past the point of pretending she didn't want this as much as he did. He hooked his fingers in the fabric and pulled, and she heard it tear. The sound should have alarmed her. Instead, it sent another wave of heat through her core. Then his fingers were there, sliding through her wetness, and they both groaned. "You're soaked," he said against her breast, his voice wrecked. "Have you been this wet for me before? When I'm working across the room? When we're eating dinner in silence? Tell me, Zainab. Tell me I'm not alone in this madness." "You're not alone." The admission felt like surrender. "I've woken up aching from dreams of you. I've touched myself in the shower, thinking about your hands. I've hated myself for wanting my captor, but I couldn't stop." His control shattered completely. He kissed her hard, fingers circling her most sensitive spot with perfect pressure. She bucked against his hand, chasing the pleasure, every nerve ending on fire. He slid one finger inside her, and she clenched around him, her head falling back against the cabinet. "More," she demanded, and he obliged, adding a second finger, stretching her. His thumb pressed against her clit, while his fingers moved inside her, finding a rhythm that had her gasping. The tension coiled tighter and tighter in her core, building towards something explosive. "That's it," he murmured against her ear, his voice dark and commanding. "Let go. I want to feel you come apart for me. I want to watch your face when you lose control. Give it to me, Zainab. Give me this." The combination of his fingers and his voice, and the intensity in his eyes, pushed her over the edge. She came with a cry that echoed through the penthouse, her whole body shaking, clenching around his fingers as wave after wave of pleasure crashed through her. He worked her through it, drawing out every aftershock, until she was boneless and panting. When she could focus again, she found him watching her with such raw want that it stole her breath. His fingers were still inside her, his other hand gentle on her hip. He brought his fingers to his mouth and sucked them clean, his eyes never leaving hers. "I need to be inside you," he said, his voice strained. "But we should stop. We should think about this. Should discuss protection and consent, and whether this is really what you want outside of the heat of the moment." She reached for his belt, her hands steadier than they had any right to be. "I'm on birth control. Have been for years to regulate my cycle. I'm clean. And I want this. I want you. Stop thinking. And let yourself feel for once. He caught her hands, stilling them. This changes everything. You understand that? If we do this, I won't be able to pretend there's any professional distance between us. I won't be able to let you go in 60 days. I'll fight to keep you with every resource I have. I know. She held his gaze, letting him see the truth in her eyes. I'm choosing this anyway. Maybe that makes me as broken as you. Maybe we're both insane, but I'm tired of fighting what I feel. He kissed her then, deep and claiming, while his hands made quick work of his belt and pants. When he pressed against her entrance, hard and thick and ready, they both held their breath. Then he pushed inside in one slow, devastating thrust, and the world narrowed to just this, just them, just the feeling of being completely full of him. They both groaned, the sound mingling in the space between their mouths. He was big, stretching her almost to the point of pain, but the pleasure overwhelmed everything else. She wrapped her legs tighter around his waist, taking him deeper, needing more. Move, she commanded, and he obeyed. He started slow, pulling out almost completely, before thrusting back in, each movement deliberate and controlled. But she could feel the tension in his body, the way he was holding back, trying to be gentle when everything in him wanted to take. Don't, she said, her nails digging into his shoulders. Don't hold back. I'm not fragile. I won't break. His eyes flashed dark and possessive. You sure about that? Prove me wrong. He growled and changed his angle, his next thrust harder, deeper, hitting something inside her that made her see stars. Then he set a punishing rhythm, each snap of his hips driving her higher. The counter dug into her back, but she didn't care. The only thing that mattered was the feeling of him moving inside her, claiming her, making her his in the most primal way possible. He palmed one of her breasts, thumb circling her nipple, while his other hand gripped her hip, holding her steady for his thrusts. She could feel another climax building, impossibly bigger than the first, threatening to shatter her completely. Look at me, he demanded, and she forced her eyes open. The intensity in his gaze was almost too much to bear. I want you to see who's making you feel this way. Want you to remember this every time you look at me. You're mine now, Zainab. No matter what happens in 60 days. Mine. The possessive claim, combined with a particularly deep thrust, sent her over the edge again. She came with a scream, her whole body convulsing, inner walls clenching around him rhythmically. He groaned her name and followed her over, his hips jerking as he spilled inside her, hot and deep, and marking her from the inside. They stayed like that for a long moment, both panting, foreheads pressed together, his softening length still inside her. When he finally pulled out, she felt the loss acutely. He immediately gathered her into his arms, lifting her off the counter like she weighed nothing, carrying her toward the master bedroom. I can walk, she protested weakly. Let me have this. He laid her gently on the bed, then climbed in beside her, pulling the covers over both of them. His arms wrapped around her from behind, holding her close. Let me pretend for just a little while that this is real, that you're here because you want to be, not because I forced you. Zainab felt tears prick her eyes. The tenderness, after the intensity, was somehow harder to bear. She laced her fingers through his where they rested against her stomach. It was real. What just happened was real. But everything around it isn't. His breath was warm against her neck. The circumstances are corrupted. The choice wasn't freely given. No matter how much we both wanted it, the foundation is poisoned. Then we're both poisoned. She turned in his arms to face him, studying the exhaustion and conflict in his expression. You by your obsession, me by my growing understanding of it. Maybe that's all we get. These stolen moments in a gilded cage before reality crashes back in. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose, gentle kisses that spoke of affection rather than passion. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make you safe, and then I'm going to let you choose. Really choose, without coercion or leverage or manipulation. And if you choose to leave, I'll learn to live with it. Liar. But she said it without heat, snuggling closer to his warmth. You'll never let me go. Not really. Even if I walk out that door, you'll always be watching, making sure I'm safe, manipulating things from the shadows to make my life easier. Would that be so terrible? His hand stroked down her spine, soothing. To be loved so completely that someone dedicates their life to your well-being, even from a distance. It would be suffocating, controlling, another kind of cage. She pulled back to look at him. But I don't think you're capable of anything else. This is who you are. Someone who loves so intensely, it becomes destructive. Then teach me. The vulnerability in his voice made her chest ache. Teach me how to love you in a way that doesn't trap you. Show me what healthy devotion looks like. I'll learn. For you, I'll learn to be better. Zainab didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because she didn't know if what he was asking was even possible. Didn't know if you could rehabilitate an obsession or redirect a fixation into something resembling normal relationship dynamics. Didn't know if she was strong enough to try. Instead, she kissed him. Soft and slow and achingly tender. A kiss that felt like a promise neither of them could keep, but would try for anyway. They fell asleep tangled together. And for the first time in 3 weeks, neither of them had nightmares. The next morning brought harsh reality crashing back. Zainab woke alone in the bed. Sunlight streaming through windows. She still couldn't open. She found Jaemin in the living room, already dressed in a sharp suit. His expression carefully blank as he spoke into his phone in rapid Korean. When he saw her watching, he ended the call. The meeting with Choi is in 2 hours. I need to leave soon. The distance in his voice felt like a slap after the intimacy of the night before. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware that she was wearing only his shirt. And if it goes badly, it won't. But she could see the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. I've prepared contingencies. Whatever happens, you'll be protected. That's not what I asked. She moved closer, watching him flinch like her proximity caused physical pain. What happens to you if this goes badly? That's not your concern. The hell it isn't. She grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at her. You don't get to use my body last night, and then shut me out this morning. Talk to me, Jaemin. What are you planning? His control cracked. I'm planning to do whatever it takes. If offering them a merger isn't enough, I'll threaten exposure of their money laundering operations. If that doesn't work, I'll buy controlling interest in their subsidiary companies and dismantle them from the inside. And if none of that works, I'll make their CEO disappear. The casual way he said it made her blood run cold. You can't be serious. I'm deadly serious. He pulled away from her grip, moving to stare out the windows at the city below. You think I'm joking? You think I won't cross every line to protect you? I've already kidnapped you. Already manipulated every aspect of your life. Already destroyed any moral high ground I might have once claimed. What's one more sin? Murder is different than kidnapping. Is it? He turned back to her, and the emptiness in his eyes was terrifying. Both involve taking someone's future against their will. Both are unforgivable. The only difference is permanence. Zainab felt like she was seeing him clearly for the first time. Not the broken man from last night. Not the tender lover. This was Kang Jae-min, the CEO. The man who commanded billions. The man who won, by any means necessary. And he was absolutely capable of everything he was threatening. Don't do this, she whispered. Don't become a killer for me. I'm not worth that. You're worth everything. He said it, like simple fact. You're worth my soul, my freedom, my life. If keeping you safe means damning myself, then I'll walk into hell with a smile. Before she could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. I need to take this. Stay inside. Don't answer the door for anyone. I'll be back before dinner. Then he was gone, leaving Zainab alone in the penthouse, with her spiraling thoughts and the lingering scent of his cologne. The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. She tried to paint but couldn't focus. Tried to read but the words blurred together. Tried to eat but nothing tasted right. She kept checking the time, watching the afternoon stretch into evening, wondering what was happening at that meeting, and whether the man she'd slept with last night was currently threatening murder. When the door finally opened after sunset, she jumped up from the couch. Jaemin walked in, looking exhausted but relieved. No blood on his hands, no darkness in his eyes, just weariness, and something that might have been hope. It's done, he said, setting down his briefcase. The Choi family has agreed to a treaty. They'll leave you alone in exchange for a joint venture that gives them access to our Southeast Asian markets. No threats, no violence, just business. The relief that flooded through her was so intense, it made her dizzy. So I'm safe? You're safe, He moved toward her, like he couldn't help himself, cupping her face in his hands. In 2 weeks, once the contracts are signed and verified, you'll be completely untouchable. No one will ever threaten you again. She should pull away, should remind him that solving one problem didn't fix the fundamental wrongness of her situation. Instead, she found herself leaning into his touch. What happens in 2 weeks? His thumb stroked her cheekbones. In 2 weeks, I fulfill my promise. I give you a real choice. Stay or go. Be with me or leave forever. Whatever you decide, I'll honor it. And if I choose to leave, pain flickered across his face. Then I'll let you go. I'll restore everything. Give you enough money to start over anywhere in the world. And I'll learn to live with the consequences of my choices. You're lying. But she said it gently. You'll never really let me go. Maybe not in my heart. He pressed his forehead to hers. But in action, I will. Because keeping you here against your will is destroying us both. Better to love you from a distance than watch you wither in captivity. Zainab closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the impossible complexity of their situation. 7 weeks ago, she'd been a struggling intern, worried about visa renewals and sending money home. Now she was tangled up with a billionaire who'd kidnapped her, threatened murder on her behalf, and loved her with an intensity that bordered on madness. The smart choice was obvious. Leave in 2 weeks. Take the money and run. Build a life far away from Kang Jae-min and his beautiful cage. But when she opened her eyes and looked at him, seeing the vulnerability beneath the power, the brokenness beneath the control, she wasn't sure she could. Wasn't sure she wanted to. I need time, she said finally. Real time to think about this without your presence clouding my judgment. Can you give me that? Of course. He stepped back, creating physical distance. I'll stay in the guest room until the 2 weeks are up. Give you space to figure out what you really want. She nodded, hating the disappointment she felt at his easy agreement. Thank you. But that night, lying alone in the master bedroom, she found herself missing his warmth, missing the sound of his breathing, missing the feeling of being held like she was precious. And she couldn't tell if that meant she was broken or healing or simply human. The next 2 weeks existed in a strange limbo. Jaemin kept his promise about distance, but Zainab found herself seeking him out anyway. They'd eat dinner together in careful silence. She'd watch him work from across the room. He'd stand in the doorway of the sunroom while she painted, offering quiet observations about her technique. The sexual tension between them was unbearable. Every accidental touch felt electric. Every shared glance lasted too long. But neither of them crossed that line again, both aware that doing so would complicate an already impossible situation. On day 60, Zainab woke to find Jaemin cooking breakfast. Real cooking. Not just reheating what the chef had prepared. He was making jollof rice and eggs, following a recipe on his tablet with intense concentration. You don't have to do this, she said, leaning against the doorframe. I know. He didn't look up from the rice. But I wanted to. Wanted you to have something I made with my own hands, even if it's terrible. She moved to stand beside him, checking the pot. You're burning the bottom. That's intentional. It's supposed to have a slight char. Who told you that? Your mother. He finally looked at her, sheepish. I called her 3 months ago. Told her I was a friend from Seoul, who wanted to surprise you with home cooking. She walked me through her technique for an hour. Zainab felt her throat tighten. You called my mother. I've called her several times, actually. Made sure the scholarship money arrived safely. Asked about your brother's school situation. Your sister's exam results. I wanted to know everything about the people who made you who you are. The rice was perfect when they sat down to eat it. Zainab took a bite and tasted home, tasted her mother's kitchen, tasted love, mixed with deception. She set down her fork. In 10 days, you're going to give me a choice, she said. But I need you to understand something first. If I choose to stay, it can't be like this. I can't be your prisoner who happens to sleep in your bed. I need autonomy. I need my own money, my own passport, my own keys to the doors. I need to know I'm staying because I want to, not because you've eliminated all other options. He set down his own fork, giving her his complete attention. Done. All of it. If you stay, I'll transfer a building into your name. You'll have full control of your assets, your own accounts that I can't access, keys to everything, a car if you want one, complete freedom to leave, whenever you choose. And your obsession? Your need to control and manipulate everything around me? His jaw clenched. That's harder. I can't promise to magically become a healthy person overnight, but I can promise to try, to go to therapy, to learn boundaries, to respect your choices, even when they terrify me. What if I want to go home? Visit my family in Lagos? Then I'll arrange first-class tickets and make sure you have security that doesn't infringe on your privacy. I'll hate every second you're away, but I won't stop you. What if I want to go back to work? Have my own career? Then I'll fund any education you want, help you get positions through merit rather than manipulation, and keep my business connections completely separate from your professional life. She studied him, looking for the lie, the catch, the hidden clause. But he met her gaze steadily, and she realized he meant every word. He was offering her real freedom, while asking her to choose captivity anyway. Why? She asked. Why give me all this when you could just keep me locked up here? You've already proven you're willing to do terrible things to keep me. Because I love you. He said it simply, without drama. Not the obsessive, possessive madness, though that's part of it, but real love, the kind that wants you to be happy even if it's not with me, the kind that recognizes your humanity and agency. I've been so focused on keeping you safe that I forgot to let you live. I won't make that mistake again. Zainab felt tears welling up. I hate that I'm even considering this. I hate that part of me has already decided to stay. It makes me feel weak and broken, and like I'm betraying every woman who's ever been trapped by a controlling man. Then leave. He reached across the table and took her hand. Please, Zainab. If staying means you'll hate yourself, then leave. I'd rather lose you and know you're happy than keep you and watch you die by degrees. But you'll be miserable. I'll survive. He smiled, and it was the saddest thing she'd ever seen. I survived before you. I'll survive after. It'll just be in black and white instead of color. She turned his hand over, tracing the lines of his palm. What if there's a third option? What if I don't stay permanently, but I don't leave forever either? What if we try actually dating, with me having my own place, my own life, and we see if this thing between us can exist outside of captivity? Hope flared in his eyes, quickly suppressed. You be willing to try that? After everything? I don't know. She was being honest. I'm so confused about what I feel. I know Stockholm Syndrome is real. I know trauma bonding is real. I know I should run far away and never look back. But I also know that when I look at you, I see someone I understand. Someone as broken and desperate and trying as I am. And maybe that's enough to build something on. Or maybe we'll crash and burn spectacularly. But I think I need to find out. He stood abruptly, coming around the table to kneel beside her chair. I'll take it. Whatever you're willing to give. 5 minutes or 50 years. I'll take it, and be grateful. She cupped his face in her hands, feeling the rough stubble under her palms. In 10 days, I'm leaving this penthouse. I'm taking the money and the apartment and the freedom you're offering. And then you're going to court me properly. Dates and flowers, and normal relationship things. No manipulation, no controlling behavior. Just 2 people trying to figure out if they can make something real out of something that started so wrong. And if it doesn't work, his voice was small, vulnerable. If you decide after 3 months or 6 months or a year that you can't be with me, then we end it like adults, with honesty and kindness, and the recognition that we tried. She leaned down and kissed him softly. But Min, if at any point I find out you've been manipulating things behind my back, interfering with my job prospects, tracking my location without permission, or any of the controlling behaviors that brought us here, I'm gone. No second chances. No explanations. Just gone. I understand. He kissed her back, deeper, full of promise and desperation. I'll be better. I swear, I'll be better. They made love, right there on the kitchen floor. Slow and tender, and full of all the words they couldn't say. Afterward, lying tangled together on the cold marble, Zainab thought about all the ways this could go wrong, all the red flags she was ignoring, all the healing they both needed before they could be healthy together. But she also thought about the way he looked at her like she was starlight, the way he'd learned to make her mother's rice, the way he hated himself for hurting her, but would do it again to keep her safe, the way he was willing to let her go despite it destroying him. Maybe love wasn't supposed to be easy. Maybe the best relationships were the ones you had to fight for, even when the fight was against yourself and your own worst instincts. Or maybe she was just another woman, making excuses for a man who didn't deserve them. Only time would tell, and for the first time in 70 days, she'd have the freedom to find out. So there you have it. Zainab's making a choice that'll change everything. But what do you think? Is she making the right call? Should she have run? Is Jaemin capable of real change? Or will his obsession destroy them both? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. And if you're invested in seeing how this story plays out, smash that subscribe button, because trust me, the real journey is just beginning. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss what happens when Zainab walks out that door and has to navigate loving a man who once kidnapped her. This story isn't over, it's just getting started.